aspirants, I welcome you all to daily newspaper analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Today's date is 14th of December 2024. Today we have chosen 4 different articles. The first article will be discussing about the difference between bail, parole and Furlough, and in the second article we'll be discussing about some of the important key terms like most favored nation, EFTA and etc. And in the third article we'll be discussing about the recent finding of JWST and what is this gravitational lensing, and the final article will be discussing about the key provisions of this railway amendment bill. So without any delay, let us get into the news article discussion. Now look at this article. Even though this news is not very relevant to our examination, here we have a very important term, bail. It is very important from the prelims perspective. So let us understand the key difference between bail, parole and Furlough. So let's start with what is bail. See, it is a temporary release of a person for whom the trial is being pending. So it's like a bond. You have to purchase the bond. Once this bond is being purchased, then it means you can be released temporarily with the condition that you should attend the court proceedings. So this is the very basic thing that you have to remember when it comes to bail. So usually you can apply for bail in a district court, or you can apply it to the high court or the supreme court, and here two persons are involved. You have to apply to the court a bail application, and the concerned police officer, they will be releasing you temporarily for a duration. And remember two important thing, the amount for this bond, it actually varies based upon the particular offense and the condition of the particular person. And the second important thing that you have to remember is, if the person who got the bail, if they are not appearing for the court proceedings, then the amount that they have paid for the bail, it will be forfeited, meaning it will not be refunded to the particular person. But if the person is proved not guilty, then this bail amount will be refunded. Remember these two important facts. Now talking about the types, there are 3 important types. Firstly, regular bail. So it is given to persons who has already been arrested but waiting for the trials. And the anticipatory bail, it is like getting bail even before getting arrested. And the third is the interim bail. It is a very temporary bail when the trial is going on. Okay, remember all these 3 types of bail. Now the very important objective of this bail is to prevent any kind of unnecessary detention. Also remember this. And the purpose of this particular bail is to balance individual liberty with societal safety. Now moving on to parole, see, it is a conditional release before completing their sentence. So it is offered to a convict who has been in jail for a particular duration of time. So after particular duration of time being in jail, parole will be provided to the convict in order to reintegrate into the society, and in some cases for personal emergency as well, parole is provided. So this duration, it varies from weeks to months, and the condition here is they have to comply with specific terms like residence restriction, meaning they cannot move beyond the territory for which they can roam. Secondly, they have to meet the parole officer every now and then, and they have to just re-register that they are present within the territory that has been allocated for them. So there are certain conditions like that, and the legal basis or from where these conditions are derived is actually based on particular state, and it varies based on the rules and regulations, and especially the Prisons Act 1894. Now the purpose of this particular parole is to provide a reformative and relief to the prisoner or the convict. Now talking about Furlough, it is like a temporary leave for maintaining family and social ties, and the duration for this Furlough is usually shorter than parole, like it is like typically 2 to 3 weeks, and it actually provides a break from prison life for reintegration, and it may not require any kind of emergency. So it is provided to the convict in order to actually reintegrate into the society after being in jail for a particular period of time. And the legal basis, it is similar to the parole. As I said earlier, it has state specific prisoner rule, but the common thing is like derived from the Prisons Act 1894, and the purpose is like reformative and focusing on prisoner well-being. So overall, when we talk about bail, it is provided to accused individual but not a convict. But the parole and furlough is provided for the convicted persons. They should be in prison for a particular period of time. And talking about the legal status, bail is like before conviction, they will be providing a bail. But the parole and furlough is provided to convicts, like they will be, like it is provided after the conviction. Now, the objective for the bail is to ensure trial attendance, but for parole and furlough, it is like a break from the prison life. Especially parole is given for rehabilitation and emergency. Talking about the duration, and until trial conclude or is cancelled, this bail will be there. Parole is longer and it's based on emergency, but the furlough is very shorter and routine based. Now, talking about the frequency, it can be occur multiple times, but the parole is very limited and furlough is very limited. Now, talking about the nature, bail is offered using a judicial order, and the parole and furlough is offered by an executive discretion. So, if the executive is happy with the behavior of the particular person, they will be provided for with the parole and furlough. Now we have a prelims question. Let me read out the question for you. Which of the following laws primarily govern the rules of parole and furlough in India? The correct answer is option C. Option C, Prisoners Act 1894. Now these learned points. Now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this news article. This news article talks about Railways Amendment Bill. Now, this Railways Amendment Bill has three important provisions. Firstly, it repeals Indian Railway Board Act 1905 and it just merges the provisions into Railways Act 1989. The second important thing is that Railway Board, they will be getting legal authority under this particular Railways Act 1989. And the third important thing is more autonomy will be provided to zones. So like railways has under this railway boards, and these zones they have to like get permission for any particular implementation of any particular thing. But now since the railway board they get legal backing, they can like function independently and the zones also will get autonomy from this railway boards. Now these are the very important thing when it comes to this railway amendment bill. It is actually a bill but not an act, but you have to remember the key provisions because it might turn into an act sooner or later. So let's quickly go through other key provisions. See, the first thing is the power given to union government. So union government will be determining the railway board members and they will actually set the qualification terms and the appointment process for the chairman and board members. Now this is very important. This is actually a centralized thing, right? So remember this provision. And this bill also has a separate or proposes for a separate regulator. This regulator will take care of setting tariff, providing safety and private sector participation. So we can tell that this railway board, it will be assisted by this regulator. Now, having seen about the key provisions, let us quickly go through the impacts of this particular amendment. See, the first thing is simplified legal framework. So it is actually combining two different laws, or we can tell that it is repealing one law and just combining the key provisions of that particular law into another one. So it provides ease of reference. Secondly, it gives more autonomy to the zones. As I said earlier, they get decision making power and freedom for implementing any project. So thirdly, faster approvals. See, the amendment has provisions for accelerating train service approvals, and we have independent regulators. So this independent regulator will not only enable the spending by government but also encourages private sector participation, and it will promote the investment, competition and service quality. Now the fifth important impact is the railway board's efficiency. Just being given the legal backing for this particular board, they'll be working efficiently and independently. Finally, there will be a boost to infrastructure, and the development of super fast train project will be accelerated if the required changes are made. So these are all the key impacts of the particular amendment. Now we have a main prelims question for you. What is the primary aim of the Dedicated Freight Corridor DFC? Here the correct answer is to reduce congestion on passenger routes. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this article. This article talks about NASA's James Webb Space Telescope JWST. This JWST has recently spotted a particular galaxy named Firefly Sparkle Galaxy. Now this Firefly Sparkle Galaxy is also called as a cosmic infant because it is in the early stage of assembly, and it has the mass that is equivalent to 10 million suns. And the very significant fact about this identification is that it provides the glimpse into the early galaxy or star cluster formation, since it is being in the assembly stage. So remember this key fact or the news. Now let's quickly go through JWST from the prelims perspective and what is this gravitational lensing that helped JWST to identify this particular galaxy. Let's start with JWST. See, it actually functions by capturing the infrared light that are invisible to our human eyes. So in order to capture those kind of light, they use a gained mirror, and they can even see through the cosmic dust and observe distant galaxies. And the other important thing that helps this JWST is this gravitational lensing. What is this gravitational lensing? Here you can see that in the image. So there will be a source, like any planet. It might be a planet or it might be a galaxy. So it might be so far away from the actual observer. Imagine this observer is like a JWST. So if there is a lens in between, especially we call this lens like any kind of black hole or any kind of galaxy itself in between. So when JWST is like viewing the source, any other object like a black hole being in between, it will like bend the light that is emitted from the source. So this bending of light by this lens will be observed by the observer, even though they are like so much of far away. So if this is the diagrammatic representation, this is how it looks actually. So we can tell that gravitational lensing is actually the bending of light by massive objects like galaxies or black holes. Now the effect they provide is like magnification. That is, they just provide a zoom effect on something that is placed very far, which looks very small, and it distorts lights from the distant sources. Remember these two things. Now there are two important types of gravitational lensing. It's just based on the mass. If the mass is very high, we call it as a strong lensing. They provide high distorter or multiple images like arches, rings and multiple points. But if the mass is very low, we call it as weak lensing, and it is used to map dark matter. See, we in universe there is abundant of dark matter, but we have not identified the reach until which this dark matter is being present. So by using this gravitational lensing, we can actually map this dark matter and the extent of a universe itself. Now let's quickly go through some of the applications of gravitational lensing. See, firstly, as I said, it can help us to map the dark matter distribution, and secondly, it helps us to probe the early universe. So just we saw about the Firefly galaxy, right? It is in the assembly stage. So by identifying the distant galaxies, we can also identify the age of our own galaxy as well. And third important thing is it helps in measuring the Hubble constant, that is the extent to which the universe has been expanded. And finally, it helps in discovering many exoplanets, and this is majorly done by observing starlight dimming. So these are all very important facts that you have to remember when it comes to gravitational lensing. Now I have a prelims question for you. Let me read out the question. Consider the following statement regarding James Webb Telescope. Three statements are given. It is developed under the collaboration of NASA, ESA and JAXA. It is designed to capture infrared light which are invisible to human eyes. And the third statement says it helps us to understand the formation of planets and the universe. So what is the correct answer? Obviously, option B. Only two statements are correct here. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Now look at this article titled Swiss Shock. Now this article has the very correct or apt title because Switzerland has currently suspended India's most favored nation status. So this is going to impact India's economy in a multiple dimension. For example, it is going to affect India's investment climate, and it is going to affect the taxation regime as well. So here we have three important keywords that we have to know from the prelims perspective. First thing is this most favored nation. Secondly, what is this double taxation avoidance agreement? And the third thing is this EFTA. So let's understand them one by one. So let's start with most favored nation clause. See, it is under WTO agreement. It is a very core principle of WTO. It is nothing but if a country is going to provide some tax concession on trade for one country, it is going to provide the same concession to all the nations when it comes to WTO. Okay, this is what the most favored nation clause actually mean. So, for example, India so far attracted like 5%, but after the cancellation, it might attract like 10%. I'm just giving the rough data. Now, this increase in taxation is going to impact a lot of things in our economy. The most profound impact will be on this double taxation avoidance agreement, or the DTAA. See, it is actually a bilateral agreement, and this has been made to just avoid paying tax to two different countries. For example, imagine there are country A and country B. Country B, if there is a company comes to country A, imagine the company's name is C. Now the company C, it just produces from country A, right? So what it has to do traditionally is that it has to pay to country A as well as country B for the profit that the country C actually makes. But when it comes to double taxation avoidance agreement, both country A and country B, they will just come to terms, and they will be settling that either country A or country B will be getting the tax from this particular company. So it depends upon the country, what kind of service it is being taking place, and the agreement between the both the countries. Now the third term that you have to remember is this European Free Trade Association, or the EFTA. So it is actually an intergovernmental organization which includes Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. Here you can see that in the map, all the four countries. Remember all the four countries. Now they promote free trade and economic integration among these four countries, and it is not part of European Union. Remember this. And when we talk about India EFTA trade, EFTA is India's fifth largest trading partner. Remember this. And we have two-way trade. For example, we have made like 18.65 billion amount of trade deficit for India when it comes to EFTA. Now, the key partner among the four is Switzerland and Norway, and that is why the increase in tax rate in Switzerland is going to impact us largely. And we actually export a lot of organic chemicals, and the major imported thing to India is pharmaceuticals and machinery. And EFTA is also like negotiating TEPA, that is the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement with India. So remember this fact as well. So far we saw about three important key terms that you have to remember from the prelims perspective. Now let us try to solve this particular question. The EFTA was established under which convention? The correct answer here is Stockholm Convention. So with this, we came to the end of the news article discussion. If you like the video, hit like, do comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Now thank you so much for listening.